Our purpose here is to make sure you're equipped with the tools necessary to create, modify, or delete local user accounts. When we start managing local users, three main commands exist. The user add command adds new users. We have user mod, which can help us modify existing users, and user del, which deletes users from the local machine. The basic syntax of a user add command simply requires you to supply the username that you wish to create. If you type user add -- help, you'll also see the entire list of options available through this command. These options allow you to specify further details about a user during creation. In this fashion, you could supply a different or custom home directory or UID if it were appropriate for your user in this case. When we have existing users that we wish to update or alter, we can use the user mod command. The user mod command has its own -- help, which supplies similar arguments to allow us to manipulate the individual fields and values for a configured existing user account. Have a look at the table that supplies the options for these previous accounts. This will serve as a great reference as you start learning the user commands. When we wish to update various fields that we find in the Etsy password file that correspond with a user, we have a flag or option for each of these commands in order to manipulate that specific data. If we wanted to alter a group's UID, shell, home directory, or group ID, a corresponding option exists in order to supply that information. Here you can see things like the -C or -- comment option, which allows us to update the field for the comment section. This typically includes a username's actual real-life name. A common use for this field is to supply the real name that corresponds to a user account. We can see additional options in order to move the home directory from its default location or even alter the shell with which a user logs in. I'll call out most explicitly the bottom option. The bottom option in this case is the -L or -- lock argument. This will lock a user account, meaning that user can no longer log in locally or remotely with their credentials. This can be a good option when you need to disable an account for a short period of time, but do not wish to delete the user account entirely. In order to unlock an account, we simply need to understand that the -U option would provide us an unlock argument. If a user needs to resume a locked account, you'll need to go through the steps to unlock it before it can proceed. The user del command is used to delete users that we have within our system. It takes an argument of just the username we wish to delete. One key flag, though, exists, which is the -R command. -R command will also remove any of the files in the user's home directory, as well as the directory itself. When we wish to fully purge the documents and contents of a user's home directory when we remove the user, the -R option will be required. When we use the command passwd and supply a username, we're then allowed to change the password configured for that user account. If we do not supply a username when we pass in this command, it will assume that you wish to change the password for the current account that you're utilizing. In general, a user can only change their own password. However, given the powers of sudo or the ability to log in with root permissions in general, you can manage and manipulate the passwords for any user account. When we invoke a password change, you can see a simulated interaction in the box below. This box shows the command password being used to update the password for the user01 account. Initially, you're asked to enter a new password. This will only be the case if you're using the root user. By default, with any other user, you'll be required to enter the current password for that user and then supply the new password. Since this example output is being done as the super user is the only user who can omit entering the initial password in order to invoke a change. This makes sense as the administrative user has the privilege to reset passwords for any user. Each user has a unique user identification number. These UID numbers have specific meanings based on the ranges that are assigned throughout the operating system. The root or super user account will always be assigned UID 0. UIDs 1 through 200 are reserved for system users, or the users that will be required to run specific applications and processes. The particular system users in the range of 1 through 200 are the ones that are statically assigned by Red Hat. The system user ID range from 201 to 999 are system users assigned by their own applications and processes. These are not typically statically assigned or reserved, but may be different across various operating systems. Programs that execute in these ways will run as their own user ID and be configured through the installation of the software that they run to have the proper and appropriate permissions throughout the file system. User IDs 1000 and above are available for regular users. As we add our own users, they should iterate through the values above 1000. That concludes our section on managing local users.